Welcome back to another chapter of Upcycling the American Dream, the story of Hamilton v. Vortic. I'm RT Custer. Make sure that you stay tuned to the end, where I let you know the best way to follow along and see the next chapter. So February 19th, 2020. I don't remember anything until we got to the front doors of the courtroom. I remember walking up to the court building, and I'm kind of glad I didn't fully register like that's the building we were going to be in, because those buildings in the Southern District of New York are massive. I mean, it's like the Coliseum, like huge stone and granite buildings. And then it was like going through airport security, and their representation and their side was just a few steps ahead of us going through security. So that I saw them, I recognized them. That made me nervous. And then we had some awkward small talk conversations with them in the like lobby area. Remember that? Yeah. Because they didn't let us into the courtroom. That was weird. But like stepping into that courtroom, like you said, like looking up at the ceiling. I mean, every ceiling tile, a tile is not the right word. Like every 2 square feet of ceiling, which the ceiling must have been 30 feet high. Mm-hmm. And every 2 square feet was like this ornate piece of ceramic, giant tile that's been up there for, I don't know, how old is that building, 100 years?
Yeah, somewhere around
80
there.
years, something like that. The federal courthouse in the Southern District, which the Southern District of New York is, I mean, that's like a really big deal, right? Like that's one of the biggest.
Well, it's in terms of volume, it's one of the biggest in the country. And in terms of the more complex cases, if you have a case that really matters, honestly, it's probably going to be in Southern District of New York.
Yeah. So walk in, and the closest thing is like if you watch like one of those Law and Order shows or something like that, the massive courtroom with the judge, it felt like she was sitting 10 feet above us. Huge room, and there was only, I don't know, 10 people in the room total, but the room could have fit 100. Mm-hmm. And we sit on one side, they sit on the other. We had a couple friends come by, which is great. And I remember just kind of like looking and like staring at the witness stand, right? Like the little seat next to the judge, just kind of freaking out. And then did I go first, or did their representation go first?
No, you went first.
I went first.
They called you because they did the cross-examination of you. Yep. And I got to recross, and then they got to recross the recross. So let's talk about my testimony and the exhibits and all that stuff in a bit. But like what I remember first, and it's all just kind of a blur, all matched together. But what I remember first is their what would she be called? Their star witness, like their corporate representative, but their star witness, yeah.
Yeah, their like version of me.
Yeah.
Like we each had a person that got put on the stand. I was for Vortic and she was for Hamilton. Mm-hmm. Technically a SWATCH employee, I guess. And I don't remember the exact chain of events that happened, but you and their attorneys were asking her questions. And at one point, there was one key piece of evidence, which all starts with like, chapter 1 or 2, like as Tyler and I were talking about it, the ad that we put in Watch Time magazine. And it'd be really interesting to like go back and read the court documents and like see the flow of this. But someone asked her, I think it was actually their representative that asked her, do you remember what was attached to the original email?
I actually was the one that asked
You asked that?
Yeah.
Do you remember what she said?
She didn't remember initially, and then the inquiry went further because it had somebody's name on that email.
Yep.
And inquiry was, do you know who this person is? And she didn't know, and it looked like it had been forwarded, the message.
When we were questioning the integrity of the only piece of evidence that they had, mm-hmm. which was this ad that got sent to her for review and said, like, is this a Hamilton or is this a Vortic? Like, that's what started it all.
Yeah.
And I think you were trying to get at like the context of like how the ad came about and just like why this was such a big deal and where it came from. And I think we were also trying to say, like, all of this happened in Canada, so, like, why are we even here? You know, like, Canadian law is totally different. Like, this is all weird. And then she said something to the effect of she couldn't remember if there was an attachment on that email.
Which was one of the critical pieces of evidence for their case.
And I remember the look on the people that they had in the back, like their faces were like, oh shit, like, what is she doing?
Well, I think, and again, going back to her testimony at the time, she basically indicated that once she received the message, I think she forwarded it on to corporate in Switzerland, and I think that was the end of it for her in terms of understanding what was going on here.
Which our point remained, you know, why are you here? Like, why don't we have someone from SWATCH or someone that actually can, you know, shed some light on this?
Yeah.
Which I did share the story about how they no-showed the one settlement conference, you know, before you came in and all that stuff. Like, it just kind of all weaved into that. But then I remember, like, the courtroom went totally silent because everyone realized that she had dropped the ball, and basically we were potentially throwing out the only piece of evidence they were talking about the whole time because she couldn't remember if it was attached to the email or not. And it was so silent. And then the judge asked her, I remember the judge saying, like, wait. Or, you know, whatever the judge says formally, and asked her point blank, do you or do you not recall, was there an email? Was there an attachment on the email? And she said, I do not recall. And then I think you said something like, whatever let's move on, or what it is. Well, and I just remember the smile on your face walking back from the
Well, there were quite a few things that they hadn't really prepared, and you know, we were on the defending side of this case, and quite frankly, wouldn't have had the resources. But in these cases, usually they'll come up with a survey saying, "Oh, so many people were confused that this is the same thing as a Hamilton watch," and they were trying to get this particular email in by showing that there was confusion with this person in Canada whom nobody knew who she was. And it had appeared also that the email had been forwarded a couple times to get to this witness, and then it was forwarded on, according to her testimony, to Switzerland, as I recall. So there were problems with the exhibit itself. You know, the reality, too, is we didn't really deny that the ad existed. And the thing that was great about your testimony, when we did have the testimony about that exhibit, you testified that it was a prototype, that in fact that watch couldn't have been made because the crown was on the when you're looking at it, the right-hand side at 3:00, and that wouldn't have been accurate because you couldn't have done it. So
it was a Photoshop photo rendering of what we thought, because we got sued before we made a watch.
Yeah.
So
you got sued before you made a watch, and you know, the thing is, she was unable to testify to any of their assertions that they had made. I mean, to the extent, I mean, she was very hard to understand, and they probably should have had a translator.
Yep.
I'm not judging for them, but she was very hard to understand, and at times it sounded like she wasn't confused, that this was a distinctly different watch. So, you know, it's how the trials play out.
It seemed like they didn't have the hotel beer preparation like we did.
Yeah, it's mainly the beer that helped, but no, the preparation, I mean, in terms of just conditioning somebody for court, like I said, the main thing I told you is tell the truth. I didn't coach you on anything other than, you know, this is what you might expect, and, you know, tell the truth and tell your story.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I think they thought they had such a winning case that they didn't need to prepare a witness. I also, the reality with these cases is as a big company, you have to bring these, what I would say many times are ridiculous lawsuits, just to protect your trademark so you don't waive your trademark. or your trade dress or whatever. And the thing is, I think they're used to, because 99% of these cases, you being the smaller watch company gives up. Mm-hmm. And I think they were surprised that we pushed back. And I'm thankful you did, because it's actually changed the kind of the atmosphere around upcycling.
Right.
But she did not have the ammo coming in at all.
Yeah, and that's what the attorney before you warned me about. And they said it was going to be really expensive, because they said the attorney for the other side, Hamilton's law firm that they had hired, was just blind with confidence and was so sure that they had this in the bag from the beginning. That's what made it feel even more like bullying to me, because I couldn't get a word in edgewise anytime we talked to them. And time again, I was reminded that I was this small and there was no chance. And I think that came out and slapped them right back in the face when, like you said, they didn't prepare the key witness because they were so confident that it was going to be a slam dunk. I just find it really interesting. And as stressful as that was a shining light of entertainment that happened in one of the hardest days. And that was my first glimpse at thinking, like, maybe we're going to win, just based on the judge's face when
that took me by surprise.
It's interesting.
Too. Yeah. Going to the comment about the David and Goliath, on more than one occasion I was informed that we were going up against the largest watch company in the world, and that basically we should pack our bags and go home. And to which I responded, well, actually, Apple is the largest watch company in the world. And they didn't find that funny.
I sure do.
Anyway.
Thanks for watching another chapter of Upcycling the American Dream. It's important to note that all the viewpoints, stories, and facts shared in these chapters are coming from me, myself, and I, Robert Thomas Custer. They are mine alone and are not shared by Vortic LLC, Vortic Watch Company, and its related parties. For our full legal description and our full legal disclaimer, go to vorticwatches.com/victory. You'll also find at that link a special offer and a link to pre-order our upcoming book. Again, vorticwatches.com/victory.